Hey gamers, Gecko here. With 2.0 being a week old, I decided to check around the internet to see what everyone's opinions were on the actual game, since I wanted to get a general baseline of what the community was thinking before I made my full analysis on it over on the main channel later this week. And while I did get a bit of a community opinions and see the general vibe of everyone after a week, I did also see a lot of talk about rage quitting, which was quite weird for me. I've not been experiencing a lot of that recently, but it turns out it was a completely different thing that was happening in the fighting game community that I just didn't notice. The Invincible Versus beta happened last weekend, and a lot of people during that beta got pretty salty. It was not uncommon for content creators to basically farm clips of opponents instantly rage quitting or just playing a single match and then leaving as soon as possible. Now obviously I missed this because I've been playing Strive, but it did get me thinking about the actual topic of one and dones and rage quits. I haven't run into them a lot in Strive, but I do know that they definitely happen. Obviously with 2.0 coming out, a lot of people have been picking up the game, and one of those people is actually someone who I play Final Fantasy with, and it's his first fighting game like ever. He's really new to the entire genre. And so he's starting out in the bottom ranks, and I really got to see how, like, the other side lives, you know? I got to see what it's like to be in these low ranks, and even he had people one and dunning and rage quitting against him. In the span of, like, 3 hours of playing as well. It was not that long of a period. So I wanted to go over this phenomenon and maybe give an example of why these things happened and why I generally think it's a bad idea for anyone to do it. I would like to believe that anyone watching this video doesn't rage quit or one and done people, but I understand that there are times where it is necessary, and I also understand why it's done. Specifically for Invincible Versus, this was a little bit of a freak case. Invincible is a pretty big property, especially in America, so a lot more casual players were coming to play the game, and casual players, don't like losing and aren't that good at fighting games. Obviously, anyone can get good at fighting games. I'm not saying that these people are doomed to be terrible for the rest of existence. But generally, when everyone starts out, they're pretty bad. And they were going against players who knew the basics of tag games. Players who were able to get a bread and butter combo pretty easily by just knowing how the mechanics of the games worked. Because of that, they get their absolute shit stomped, and they either immediately rage quit because they're done and they don't want to play anymore, or they just don't rematch because they don't feel like it's worth any of their time. This also isn't helped by the fact that Invincible Versus literally has your characters explode in blood when they lose, very Mortal Kombat-esque. And generally when you're getting your shit kicked in so hard that your character literally blows up, it's not the best feeling in the world. There's only so much I can comment on about Invincible Versus because I didn't play the beta. But from what I can tell online, there wasn't enough tools to let new players know exactly what they needed to do, and the matchmaking seemed to be divisive during the beta. This is pretty common though. It happened to me in a completely different beta. When Marvel Tokon had its first beta, I got a lot of rage quitters and a lot of people who one and done me as I was going on an absolute winning spree with Star-Lord. These things just happen, especially in an unranked environment against good players who kind of know what they're doing. I really blame people for that, especially in a beta. The obvious example for some of these is just better matchmaking, but both of these were in betas, so they're not really gonna have actual matchmaking. How do you get a good matchmaking system with just 2 days of play? You don't really. No, I wanted to look at games that have been around for a bit, have really solidified their player base, and still have the problem of one and dones. Because this is actually quite common amongst fighting games. Tekken, I would say, is the most infamous for having just one and dones in matches. It's kind of a joke at this point that if you win in Tekken, the likelihood is your opponent's not going to rematch, especially in ranked queues. It leads to a lot of frustration amongst the player base. But rage quits and one and dones are found in literally every single game. So why is that? Well, part of it is pretty simple. Ego. Most of the time when you see these things happen, it's entirely in the ranked mode. And a lot of people put a lot of value into the shiny rank that they have. Players in gold, platinum, diamond, hell, even like master ranks generally put a lot of pride into whatever shiny badge they have. And some of them even put their self-worth into whatever rank they've gone into, which is healthy. It's definitely healthy. But because of that, they want to keep it no matter what. And since the games don't necessarily punish you that heavily for leaving, and some games don't punish you at all, it feels justified to just pull the cord, disconnect the console, turn off the game, just leave immediately and keep the shiny rank. This was a problem in Strive for quite a while, honestly. When we had the third-party tracking system where it didn't actually have anything in-game, we just had our own little MMR system separate from the game. Several people would try to cheese it by just DCing the moment they were about to lose, so the external state didn't have a way to track that the match was over. It still happens a little bit in Vanquisher. Thankfully, from what I can tell, and especially around my level, it doesn't seem to happen too much. But reports of players just disconnecting the moment that they're about to lose is still a thing that happens sometimes. It even happened to me the other day. I didn't have it on recording, but here's a screenshot of it. If you want to know, I was fighting a Venom. He did the ball super, and I Kara-canceled into Jam super and went directly under the ball. I don't think this one was about keeping his MMR. I genuinely just think I pissed him off. But the tie to the rank is a very big part of it. People don't want to lose their rank. They want to keep their shiny number. But it's not the only thing. Fighting games have started doing this a little bit, but it's generally not enough. Punishing people for leaving generally isn't a massive thing in these games. In Street Fighter, you will lose a couple of rank points if you leave, and Tekken has a disconnect ratio that it can show opponents, so they can judge if they want to go and fight you before it. But compared to how some other games handle levers, like putting you in an elongated queue, or just not letting you go into a ranked match at all for a set period of time, fighting games are very lenient when it comes to people just disconnecting. If you don't want to deal with something, you can just bounce. You don't have to be there. And this leaves a lot of players who have a bit of an inflated ego to go, yeah, you know what? I am just going to disconnect. On the flip side of this, there's technically nothing wrong with one and dones. If you don't know what a one and done is, basically all fighting games have a first to two / best of 3 format for their rank modes. This means that you play until one person wins 2 times over the opponent. Then the rank match is done and you go back into the queue. One and dones are forcefully turning this system into a first to one by not rematching the opponent no matter what the result is. You can one and done on a win to just secure whatever rank points that you want and immediately leave, or you can one and done on a loss to try and mitigate the losses that you take to your rank and just go back into the rank queue. There's technically nothing wrong with this. This is a thing that anyone can do for any reasons, and it needs to be in the game because sometimes there are valid reasons on why you'd want to leave a set early. Maybe your kitchen's on fire, or your roof falls in, and suddenly you need to just abandon the game and can't be there anymore. That's completely fine. But a lot of people abuse these systems to make sure that they get as many points as possible. Either they mitigate the losses because they're getting absolutely shit-stomped, or they try to find ways to cheese out their opponents as fast as possible, and then leave the moment they think that they're getting onto them. Generally, fighting game players see this as quite scummy, and unfortunately, there's no real way to mitigate this. At least currently. I do think that fighting game devs could definitely be doing a lot more to make playing out the full set more enticing. Like, you could one and done, or you could go and play the full set and you get a bigger reward for winning the entire thing. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that everyone should get more rank points for winning an entire set. That could lead to quite swingy matchmaking, and it could end up hurting the player base more than it actually succeeds in doing anything, since the ranks would be more inflated, since people are gaining more points. I'm not necessarily saying that's the best idea, but fighting games are at a point where they're really tying into other aspects of games. The main thing that I can think of is that most fighting games at this point have some kind of battle pass. Tekken and Street Fighter both have a battle pass. Guilty Gear Strive is getting a battle pass. If games are going to be adding these things, they could tie them into the reward structure of ranked. Maybe if you play out a full set, no matter what result you get more points towards the battle pass, incentivizing players to stick around even if they're losing in a set. And for those players that are winning, it feels even better because you get to win a full set and you get even more things going towards your other objective that you might be grinding for. Maybe they could have missions where you have to play X amount of sets instead of X amount of single matches to incentivize players all over to just continue playing. It's a problem that's plagued fighting games for a while, and I'd really like devs to at least try something to incentivize people to play out the full matches. I genuinely cannot think of any fighting game that rewards you for playing the full set. The only reason that I know that most people do it is because it helps you improve and it's fun. Here's the thing with both of these techniques that really piss me off. They focus entirely on the aspect of the game that has nothing to do with the actual gameplay. The whole reason why we play sets is because we're able to adapt back and forth. If someone wins the first round, that doesn't mean they've won everything. The likelihood is they've won, but they've given the opponent a bunch of information on what they like to do. The opponent then can use that information to figure out how to beat the opponent and potentially take the next round or the entire set. The best fights in any fighting games are back and forths like this. Essentially, players giving big streams of information back and forth to each other about how they like to play and what they like to do, and the opponents showing how they're adapting to that, and then opponents adapting back to it. One of the strongest skills you can have in any fighting game is figuring out your opponent's plan and knowing how to deal with it. But an even stronger skill is figuring out that your opponent's adapted to your game plan and figuring out how to adapt back to their adaptations. It's what leads to the most hype moments in any fighting game. Basically, all of the moments that you see where people are popping off and going crazy are a result of people figuring out what the opponent wants to do and punishing it heavily. And you don't get that experience in a first to one. If you are serious about playing fighting games, even at a mostly casual level, you should play out the full set. Your rank is temporary. It literally changes with every single match. The information that you get throughout an entire set, though, that is permanent. Your rank is a reflection of your current skill and your current knowledge. And you are trading long-term improvement for really short-term gains by just going, yeah, I'm done, and finishing a match early. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to your opponent to play out a full set whenever possible. And this is why Guilty Gear Strive's ranked matchmaking should be first to free. Listen, first to free is just a better format for the entire thing. You gotta do it, Arxis. We've been doing first to free for 5 years in tournaments, and it is objectively the best way to do it. I played in a bracket yesterday that was first to free, and oh my fucking god, it was so much nicer than ranked. I had so many close calls against so many opponents that I just wouldn't have had in a shorter set. Strive's a very swingy game, alright? Just let us have a first to free format in ranked. Or at least the option of it. Let us double down our points or something, you know? I'll just give you more insight into the philosophy of rage quitters, why I generally think it's a bad idea, what I think developers should do to fix the problem, and what I think players could learn from actually doing things. I hope you like the format as well. I really like this whole me in the box and then the gameplay on the side as like a Subway Surfers kind of thing. Perfect. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Come over to the Twitch. We did a lot of lab and stuff yesterday with Jam, so I'm going to be testing a lot of it out today in ranked, raw. It's going to be good. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye!